welcome. Hello everybody, and welcome to Web Security Warriors, episode number. Is
Don't
it
sound
20,
too
19?
depressed.
19. Depressed?
Is it a funeral today?
No, that was last weekend, or 2 weekends
Oh,
ago now, maybe. Yeah.
right. Bad joke. Bad joke.
No, don't worry. Um, Welcome to Web Security Warriors. I am the host, John Shaver, and we have with us today Lance Butters,
Hello.
AJ O'Neill,
Yo, yo, yo. Coming at you live from sunny Pleasant Grove.
and we have Guy Fox.
What's so pleasant about Pleasant Grove? That's my chime in line.
Well, you gotta come and find out.
Well, my question is there ever been a grove that hasn't been pleasant?
Yes.
The Grove of Death!
Actually, there was a poem called The Posthumous Grove that was actually pretty morbid, but yeah, let's not go into that. So.
Good old Edgar Allan Poe and his cronies.
Yeah, good old Eddie. So.
Sounds like a poem he would write.
Yeah. Something dark and depressing. Yeah, sounds like Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, but the best line out of Poe was, "I love she who hates me more," out of The Raven. Love that line. And he was quite a cocaine addict, I hear.
That's good. That's good. Everyone needs a hobby.
Everyone needs a bad habit anyway, right? So.
Yes, but today we're not talking about cocaine. Today we're talking about Let's Encrypt.
Okay, but really quick, can I get back on the story that we were covering just a minute ago? So, you want me to just for the laughs here?
Let's Encrypt because
Okay, fire away.
Time
Let's have
frame.
it. Story for later. You're all gonna laugh though. Go ahead.
So let's just quickly talk about what Let's Encrypt is. I know AJ's been working on that. He's been excited about that, so I'll let him go ahead and do it. He'll probably describe it a lot better than I will.
Okay, let me size my browser window real quick because I can't. Can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
So wait.
To resize your browser window.
So at this point,
Hold on.
has everybody seen Star Wars? Just while he's doing that, so we can tell all the jokes.
You should probably ask all of our listeners.
Oh, right.
See. I guarantee you there's...
I'm hearing an echo of myself like 30 seconds later.
Oh, yeah?
Wow.
Well, I wonder who's doing that. Are
you hearing your own echo now?
I am, yeah. I'm hearing it delayed, yes, but
Everybody...
only through your side of things. I can hear it echoing out on your speaker and then back into your microphone.
Okay, what is going on?
I don't hear anything, but I don't have speakers set up. I just have my headphones.
Yeah, I guess if you're not talking, we should probably mute or something. Help cut out the echo.
Okay, I don't know what's going on, but I keep on hearing the same things over and over and over again. Okay, I'm going to cancel the call because I can't even tell whether I'm hearing things from before or after or...
Yay!
Okay.
Is that better for everybody?
Okay, yeah, it is actually. Tell them to put some headphones on. Tell them to put a headset on. So, I'm going on mute now, kids.
We will bring AJ back in and try this again.
Or we won't.
Well, one nice thing about doing a podcast is that you can edit things, except when you're doing it directly to YouTube. It makes it a little bit more difficult to edit out the parts that didn't work very well.
So this is going directly to YouTube?
It does that, yeah. Are you there, AJ? We haven't heard you say anything.
Okay, I'm back again now.
Are you all echoey again?
No, I found out what it was. It was because I had a window open to this Hangout.
Mm-hmm.
Was playing that. I guess it was loud enough through my speakers that it was being picked up through my microphone. So I was hearing the same thing over and over and over again.
Oh, you had like another. Okay, I think
Because when I tried to open the Hangouts to join the first time, it
you had
opened.
another window that was just watching it.
Yes,
Got it. Okay.
yes, and so I was getting this
Here I
constant
thought we actually had a viewer on this.
no.
I think we're really impressing our listeners with our technical abilities, actually.
Well, we ought to be, right? Okay, so here we are. This is the Let's Encrypt website, and what Let's Encrypt is well, it's kind of hard to describe. Is it a movement? Is it a technology? Is it an organization? It's kind of all those things.
Well, it started as a movement that started building the whole technology behind the website, right?
Yes. So the idea is that we want to have encryption everywhere. Like we want that every person's web page is encrypted, that all communication is encrypted. Basically, we want the same thing that we had back in the 1600s, which is the ability to go to a private place and have a conversation, not being recorded and watched and in the public view for whatever reason. Like for example, I was a student at BYU, and I would hop on the Wi-Fi back in the good old days, and I would open up Wireshark and I would watch people's Facebook conversations because it was funny to do. Right? And that's just not what generally people want. Like, was everyone okay with me watching their conversations? Well, they didn't know, so they
Well,
didn't care.
dude, your statute of limitations is not up on that, so you know be careful there, sir.
I don't even know what that means.
Well,
But
if the door wasn't locked, but
I don't know.
and since
Does
then,
that mean you can sit in my house, though?
Well, it's not like any of it was recorded or anything, so there's no evidence that I ever did it. But
other than you just said you did,
well, yeah, but I mean, you can say lots of things. It doesn't mean they're true. Anyway,
Still get you in trouble.
but since that time, Facebook has switched over to using HTTPS for all of their
yes.
traffic, right?
Yes, and so now
Now
I
that
would
it
not be
works
able
well.
to do that anymore. And I'm a little bit more, no, I'm not really any more mature. I just have better things to do with my time now. So anyway, point being, like whether it's benign or malignant, we just don't want people creeping on our conversations and the things that we do online. And so Let's Encrypt is an initiative to allow everyone to have free and easy access to the tools necessary for encryption. Most poignantly, um, there needs to be a certificate authority because part of the definition of private is that the parties are authentic. So if I, AJ, am having a conversation with John Shaver, we need to know that I am AJ and that John is John in order for our conversation to be private. If we don't know that I am AJ and we don't know that John is John, then we can't truly say that our conversation is private because we don't know who the person on the other end truly is. And this is a problem with websites because you go to a new website every day and you don't necessarily know that the website that you're visiting is the website that you intend to visit. And there are still routers out there that do the, I forget what they call it, like the Lulternet or something like that, where it replaces, it's like a special build of
Oh
one of
yeah,
those WRT things where
yeah.
it'll replace all the images on a website with a cat,
Mm-hmm.
or that some of the smarter ones, what they do is they replace all of the Google AdWords IDs with their own ID. So whenever you're surfing someone's blog, it's giving them the AdWord credit rather than the blog owner.
Yep.
So there's lots of things that happen out there. I mean, if you go to touristy locations and you go to a coffee place and hop on the hotspot or the Wi-Fi, there's a good chance that they're either going to be paywalling you, or perhaps in your less fortunate circumstance, they're going to be listening to your traffic and grabbing things that they think look interesting to them, like perhaps your credit card number or some personally identifiable information that they could use to fake your identity and whatnot. So anyway, we want private communication, and unfortunately there has to be a certificate authority in the current model that is just basically it's VeriSign / Symantec. I think that it's like the big one, and they basically own .com and the internet at large. And so if you want to get a certificate directly from them, you pay something like $3,000 or maybe $1,000. It's over $1,000 that you pay to get a certificate from them, and that it doesn't have anything to do with the encryption. It doesn't have anything to do with the safety. It's just because it has their name on it, and so they can charge whatever they want. And then there's differing tiers of validation, so you can easily find the exact same standards that you'd get from the VeriSign certificate, which is that you get the big green bar that has your company name in it. So you can get that from other companies for like $300. And then with Name.com, which I like and plug often, they use Rapid SSL, and they have like a bulk purchase agreement. So instead of paying the $40 or $30 you'd pay to Rapid SSL, you only pay $10 through Name.com, and then you can get just the simple green lock. And now with Let's Encrypt, you can get your green lock for free, and all of it, whether you're paying $1,000 or you're paying $0, it's the exact same encryption. The only difference is how much money you're paying and whose name is on the certificate as the certificate authority. So Let's Encrypt is a certificate authority that does not charge money, and instead uses a very simple domain validation. So it's a DV certificate, which I imagine in some future DV certificates will be differentiated in browsers from OV certificates, which is organization validation, and EV certificates, which is extended validation. The only current differentiator is that an EV certificate has the solid green bar with the company name in it.
Yep.
Any questions on that?
I think you did a pretty good job of explaining it there. Yeah, I mean, HTTPS is important for people to have. And I think a lot of people, though, will say, oh, well, my site doesn't really have much of anything on it. Do I really need to have HTTPS on my website?
To which I would say yes, because any router in some touristy hotspot place can change out things about your site, could make your site malicious, could inject spyware or adware or whatever onto your site, and that could potentially damage your reputation. But
and it could be damaging to the people visiting your website as well.
Well, yes. So any unencrypted traffic, you cannot guarantee what you're sending is what the person is getting, or even that when they, one of those hotspot routers could take a website and just completely fake it if there's no encryption. So the router can just hijack the DNS and fake it. And these are all man-in-the-middle attacks that I'm talking about right now. But even from the perspective of, like, I'm visiting some blog and I'm visiting it because I have some sort of strange rash that I don't necessarily want the whole world to know about. What it is that I'm viewing, what purpose I'm viewing it for, I might, as a customer, consider to be private, and so I appreciate even when blogs have encryption enabled, because if I want the world to know what I'm looking at, then I'll share it on Facebook.
Okay, I think we could probably. What is required to be able to do this? I guess. I want to say, well, yeah, you don't have an excuse now because it's free. But on the other hand, there are certain requirements you can't, like if you just start, for instance, a shared hosting account on something like Bluehost, the default account won't allow you to do this because you would have to have a dedicated IP address to
That's
be
not
able to
true.
do
You
that,
don't
which is a
you
little bit
don't need a
extra.
dedicated IP address.
Is that because of TLS now, or
Yeah, TLS
I,
has a protocol called server name indication, SNI, which I mean, if you're serving your web page to Internet Explorer 6, then yes, you would need a dedicated IP
yeah,
address. But I don't think that's really much of a problem.
yeah, that's probably true. Um, and your host will have to support it because last when I was at Bluehost, they didn't support it, so I don't know if they may have added support for that on their servers.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the shared hosting companies are going to be slow to adopt Let's Encrypt because it eats into their margins because they get to charge you $30 for a year of SSL, and it like
Plus $30 for a year of a dedicated IP address.
Well, is there any reason to use shared hosting? Like, I haven't used shared hosting since I first started web development.
I
If
mean,
you are somebody at home who wants to put up a WordPress site in 10 minutes, that's the only reason I could think of.
Yeah,
Even
I
then,
would
most
I would
people are.
strongly recommend getting away from shared hosting because I've had nothing but problems with it. Because like if one of the sites gets popped, they just go through and pop all your sites, and security's usually been really bad at shared hosting. And I personally prefer just having your own VPS, your own cloud server. But that might be too much for most people.
But yeah, we're talking about people like grandma at home wants to make a website type of thing.
yeah, so in that case, you need to go with somebody that's kind of up on the curve and providing this already. And there are providers, I don't remember.
Yeah, there's a bunch of website building utilities and things. So yeah, if you're in the realm of using shared hosting, I strongly recommend going that extra step and kind of learning how to set up a VPS or something that will at least let you have some control over your server.
Well, I don't think most of our listeners are going to be at the point where they're using shared hosting, hopefully. Um, well, not to disparage anybody that is, but I'm just saying in general, people that, if we're trying to get everything encrypted, just certain things that can, be obstacles to that. But
Yeah.
Well, at Daply, we are working on a hosting solution right now because for our home cloud service, we have to do domains anyway because there's no current service that's designed to work with dynamic IP addresses, which, in people's homes where we're going to be selling the cloud systems, all the IP addresses are dynamic. So we actually are right now working on a domain service, and we will also have um, hosting available as well. And I'm not sure exactly how we're going to go about that. We kind of want to stick with the model of, you pay for hardware rather than you pay monthly service fees or reduced monthly service fees. But that's something that we will be doing. And I'm sure that lots of other hosting providers that aren't making huge margins on SSL certificates are going to be switching it as well because it becomes a value add to them. Whereas places like GoDaddy are not going to adopt it very readily, I wouldn't think, because they have huge margins on SSL and they have lots of customers that are willing to pay for that. So them switching over to the free option is not going to be something I would expect to see anytime soon. So it's going to be the smaller or newer companies that have a competitive advantage to come into the market that are going to be doing it.
yeah, and I think it'll be something that does take over almost every website probably in the future, but will take some time probably. Like you said, it'll be once they get to the point where, okay, we have to do this because our customers are like, how come I can't do this and you can do it on this other service. But what we're here for is actually to set up a Let's Encrypt certificate on a particular server that AJ just set up here because mine was broken down.
All right. So let me switch over to, I'm going to have to switch back and forth probably between the screen sharing. Oh,
Now we can see a nice picture of AJ.
Okay,
Bubbles. There we go.
so I've got this server that I just set up. Why is it doing that? Oh, because I need to be root. That's why. I just set this up on DigitalOcean. So this is a clean, fresh server with nothing on it. And I am going to do this a couple of different ways. So that there's a web server that has Let's Encrypt built in, and it is called Caddy. All this bouncing back and forth between the two displays is going to be a little annoying, but whatever. Okay, so I'm going to go caddyserver.com, and let's see if he's got the... oh, he didn't add that yet. Well, you can... I'm going to show the command line way of downloading it. I thought there was a spot on the website for it, but give me just a second. So this is like Nginx or Apache, but it's written in Go. And oh, I just had the website up here. Hold on a second. And if you're on OS X or Linux, it's actually really easy to get it installed. So I just have this curl command, and I'll put that in the show notes. And the getcaddy.com is a bash script, and it'll detect which operating system you're running and then get you the correct binary. So I hit enter here, and now if I were to run caddy from a directory that has some web pages stuff in it, it would work. So I'm going to do ledemo. I'm just going to create a directory, ledemo.apply.com, and go into that directory, and then put an index.html in here. It just says hello world. And then I need to create a caddy file. And I need to tell it what email address to associate with the certificate. So TLS is the option, and then I just put an email address. And then I want to say that the root is, I'm going to call it ledemo.apply.com. There we go. So I'm going to make this directory. Oh, good, that already exists. Pop out of here. Okay, so now in my serve directory, I have my ledemo.apply.com. I'm going to go into it from there instead of from my home directory.
It's probably a good idea.
And then just to output the contents of this caddy file, I'm just putting the domain name, and then I'm just giving it some directives. So gzip is turned on, TLS is turned on through Let's Encrypt with the email address, and then the root that it should be looking for files is the same name, directory name as the domain name, just because I wanted to call it that. And then the only file that I have in here is the caddy file in index.html. So if I run caddy, see it's activating privacy features. And now if you go to ledemo.dapply.com, you should see hello world. So I'm going to switch my sharing back to the browser. And there we are. And of course, there's also the caddy file in there, which probably isn't the best. Oh, it's not showing the caddy file. I guess it's fine. Anyway, yeah. So now that's all I had to do is just run the server. And then, oh, this is a new Chrome tool that I haven't seen before. And it shows that it's from the DST root CA, the Let's Encrypt Authority, and ledemo.dapply.com.
So it used the Let's Encrypt API to just generate the certificate and install it automatically.
Yep,
And
it's all built in.
So does that? And you said something earlier that before we started recording that it updates it every 3 months.
Yeah. So the certificates last for 90 days. So if you look at the certificate details here, see the expiration date is May 19th of this year. And so if you're using a web server that doesn't have the integration built in, then you have to manually go on the server and rerun the Let's Encrypt client. So you can use the Python client. But if you've got a web server that's got it built in, then it'll just automatically renew it when it is about to expire. So I think that most of those are set to around like at 80 days. They try to renew it, so 10 days before it actually expires. And if I were to look at, I think there's a hidden directory. Oh, let me switch back over here.
So definitely, if you are doing this, you're going to want some server technology or something that supports this and automatically does the renewal for you, because otherwise renewing your certificate every 90 days would get kind of annoying.
So the Python client, what they recommend with the Python client that's the official client is that you just put it in a cron task. So I'll also demonstrate
that would work.
How to use the Python client. But right here, you can see, so caddy has a special directory that runs in the home folder of whatever user's running it. And that's where the encryption keys actually are. So you can see there's the certificate here, there's the registration information is in this JSON file, and then there's the actual private key here. And unfortunately, caddy doesn't use the same directory structure as the Python clients. But I've bugged the author a little bit about that because I don't see the point in having multiple different ways of doing something when we could just do it the de facto way. So hopefully that changes in the future so that the different clients will all use the same nomenclature for the certificates, and it will be very crystal clear, and you can look at any documentation and understand any of them. That would be my hope for the future. But you know how people are; they always want to do things differently for some reason. So we'll see. So I also wanted to show we've built a web server in Node called Let's Encrypt Express. And I will show that as well. It's also just a simple run a bash script. And if you're using Node, then this might make sense for you or might not, because you probably want something like caddy that's written in a lower level language to handle, like if you've got lots of binary files and whatnot. But if you're just purely API based, then you might want it built directly into Node. So give me just a second here.
Is there an official Node module at all, or just curious? I guess I could go check it myself.
We created the module called Let's Encrypt, and that is what other people in the Node community are using. And it was based off some work by someone else that had LE Tiny was the name of it. And I forked that and created Let's Encrypt. And then there's a couple of different modules that use that. It's Python client compatible, but there's no Python in it. It's just Node. But it's got the same command line options and everything as the Python one does for
Oh, okay.
simplicity's sake.
So that module is for setting up. Wait, no. I'm just looking at the package right now.
So we have 3 different modules. We have Let's Encrypt Express, Let's Encrypt CLI, and Let's Encrypt.
Got it. Okay, I was just getting them confused. Okay. No, that makes sense now. So you could actually just use the node Let's Encrypt module
Yeah.
to be able to just like script your own setting up the Let's Encrypt and set up a cron that way instead of using the Python client. Okay.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons that I created the node module is because the Python one is like ridiculously slow because it's written in Python and it takes forever to compile, and on like an ARM processor it takes a really long time to run. I mean, on a regular server you're not really going to notice it. It's going to be fine. But because we're working on home cloud devices, we needed it to be fast because we can't have people waiting around for a minute for things to start working. We want it to be pretty instant.
Yeah. Okay.
So hold on just one second. I'm going to bring that up. Let me see if I can get the official Python client, actually. Hopefully it won't take too long to display.
So while you're doing that, I'm going to ask an obvious question. If you can get a certificate for free, are people still going to buy certificates?
Of course they are, because most people don't know that you can get them for free. And as discussed previously, the service providers, they're the ones that are making high margins on SSL certificates now. They're not going, unless they start losing customers, which their customer base, most of them, is probably the lowest technical tier of customer. Like people that know absolutely nothing about websites are going to go to GoDaddy, and GoDaddy is going to suck them dry, right? Because it's a business model that's worked for them for years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anybody that does anything with websites doesn't use GoDaddy, right? But 90% of people, or probably not quite that high, but really high, buy their domain on GoDaddy because they are the most well marketed. They are the Donald Trump of domains or domain name providers, right?
Let's not get into that. We're gonna get all kinds of hate mail.
But nobody even knows who the other candidates are, or if there are other candidates. I'm just saying.
Okay, remember a couple of years ago, if you wanted to insult somebody, you would say, they're the Sanjaya of, whatever. You guys remember Sanjaya, right?
No.
But let me do this,
dude.
So
don't remember Sanjaya.
If you look at,
I might be too young
am I
for
sharing
that.
the right thing here still? Yes, I am. So I cloned from the official Let's Encrypt repository. This is the Python client, and I cloned that. I'm going to go into that directory, and then I have to build it. But the build process should be pretty quick on DigitalOcean Box. I think it's going to take like a minute or something. So we can chat while this is happening. But I just ran. Oh, I should have said what I
think I do. Okay, I do know who Sanjaya is now that I googled him. I don't recognize the name but my mom probably would. She'd be like, "Oh, Sanjaya." No offense. I wasn't trying to say anything there, but I think that he was on American Idol when my sister and my mom were watching it.
Okay.
How long ago was that? That was, yeah, okay.
So then the question comes too is like what does Let's Encrypt have for the event that they lose their certificate authority or they get owned or because with everybody using their free service, there's going to be a point where someone's going to go after them, and I imagine we're going to be reading at some point in the future about how they had a security compromise. So I mean that might be one reason to kind of continue with a different certificate authority.
I would argue that's an invalid point because they would just go after some other certificate authority the same way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they leave themselves exposed a little bit more, maybe with having
No,
the API
because
so much.
an attacker is going to go after the lowest hanging fruit, right? So the lowest
Mhm.
hanging fruit is just taking over people's DNS, and that's already happened.
Okay, I
So
see what you're saying.
this is the downside of Let's Encrypt, is because Let's Encrypt now allows you to get a site just by domain validation. There have already been, like you can read in the news, there have already been hacks where people have had subdomains hijacked, and then they get the HTTPS for it, right?
Hmm.
And then they can use that to leverage it against the current site, because if the main site is using HTTPS and the subdomain is using HTTPS, then the attacker can have you visit the subdomain that they've hijacked
Hmm.
and
Sometimes they can.
communicate with the main domain, and the security
Yep.
policy is in place because they're both HTTPS. So Let's
And they're on the
Encrypt.
same domain, even if one's a subdomain, and if you don't, well, I don't know if you can actually. Anyway, yeah, there's like ways you can communicate via cookie and things like that, right?
Right. So it actually does open the door to make attacks that were not previously very easy much easier. Because if you can hijack the subdomain or hijack the DNS, you can get domain validation, and so that's where the key pinning comes into play. So in your web server, so let me just let me show you what I ran real quick, and then generate the certificates again using the official Python client, and then I'll tell you what you can do with the key pinning. So I just ran the time command here so that we could see how long it takes. Like on this really fast server, it took 1 minute and 9 seconds. On something like a Raspberry Pi, that explodes to, like, I can't remember what it was, but I want to say it was like over 10 minutes that it takes to install. Um, and then getting the certificate is slow too, because it has like a ton. They're talking about slimming it down, but currently there's like a ton of dependencies that have to do with like the GUI and like lots of options. And I'm just interested in the command line, so I'm copying and pasting from another article that we've written. Oops, I don't want that to work that way. Hold on. And I'll share that too, but this is the command to get the domain validation. So give me just a second here. I'm going to call this test.txt, and I'm going to swap that out. Oh, and there's one other thing that I need to do here. I'm going to set up www.le-demo.dapply.com to be the server. Now that's set up. Oh, what'd I do? Oh, there it is. Cool. So you can authorize more than one domain at a time. So that's what I'm showing here, is there's the domains command. So what this is saying is it's only going to get a certificate. It's not gonna, like, you can use command line options to have it install into Apache and Nginx and stuff. It'll like try to parse the configuration and like figure out where all the stuff should go and like make it as automatic as possible. You have to give it.
Yeah, that'd be. That's good to know. I didn't know that the Python client did that.
Yeah, it does. The Node client that we've created does not do that, because we expect that you're either going to be using Caddy or Node. But for people that are using Apache and Nginx, it has all the configuration options. But I'm just using the simplest, like most straightforward way that would work with anything. So you'd have to agree to the terms of service of the subscriber agreement for the certificate authority. You put in your email address. Standalone means that I'm going to use this without a web server. The other option is to use webroot, which is if your web server is already running, then it can use the currently, you tell it the path. I'll show that in just a second. But you tell it the path that you want it to use for the validation, and it'll just create a file, and it'll run the validation through the Python client, and let your web server handle retrieving the file. But the standalone option is that it creates a little Python web server and does it right then and there. So this is the command that I'm going to use right now. Oops. Okay. And so, see, it's a little bit slow. All right. And yeah, so now it shows this is where the certificates went, right here. So if I want to use it with any web server, that's the path that I need to point to. And I will go ahead and ls that so you can see. Actually, I'll tree it. I probably have to install tree, so I'll use ls instead. But you can see there's privkey.pem and fullchain.pem. Fullchain.pem is just your certificate plus the authority chain together. So the certificate, if you were to cat cert.pem with chain.pem, you would get fullchain.pem. And then privkey.pem is your private key. Now, to the point of key pinning, this private key, if you use key pinning, you have to keep safe forever, basically. You can actually pin more than one private key for backup purposes in case like a server gets compromised. But if you want to use key pinning, what that means is that it will expect that private key to be there whenever the browser encounters it. So as long as the browser's visited the page once before, if the private key were to be changed, like somebody were to hijack the DNS and the private key were to be changed, the browser would say, "Nuh-uh, no go, even though this has been validated with Let's Encrypt, I know that this is not the site that you expected to be, and it must have been hijacked because the fingerprint of the private key doesn't match what it's supposed to." Does that make sense?
So even if you get a new certificate, completely set up a new key, get a new certificate, it'll still pin based off of the old key.
Yes. So the key gets reused from year to year to year. So
well, yeah, you can do it that way. You can also just buy a new certificate, but
no. The certificate is separate from the key. The key is the encrypted bits.
Yeah.
So you want to use the same key, and that's why you have a renewal process as opposed to the registration. As part of the registration, you can either specify a private key, or the default is that it generates a new private key. But with the renewal, it will replace the cert.pem, chain.pem, fullchain.pem, but it will keep the same private key year after year after year.
Yeah, no, I know that's the way that you usually do it. I've seen some people who also want to cycle through keys and use different keys when they renew. But
that is an insecure practice because then you lose the opportunity to keep in.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I didn't know that before, but yeah, that sounds right to me. Yeah. I didn't realize that key pinning required you to keep using the same key.
Yes, that is what prevents an attacker from being able to hijack your DNS and forge. Because if I were able to hijack your DNS for just 10 minutes, right, or whatever if I was able to attack you once and get that DNS poison started, then it's going to last for whatever the duration of your DNS records are. So if they're set to last for an hour, then I have an hour where I can impersonate you. Or if it's set for a day, then I have a day where I can impersonate you until all that stuff gets cleared out. And so the key pinning is important because now that we have Let's Encrypt, it's super easy. Anybody can, if they can hijack your DNS or they can get access to one of your subdomains, they can get it validated with a private key that is not actually your private key. So the key pinning of the private key is important. And the name for that is, I think it's HPKP.
That sounds right to me.
I'm going to switch over to showing the browser.
We're getting close to time here, so
okay.
Go ahead and let's just finish showing what anything else you want to show here, and then we can move on to the picks.
Oh. So, well, it would have been cool if you had your server up. We could maybe do an addendum with that, because I think it would be good to show like using the Apache options.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my server. I can't even shell into it right now. I rebooted it and I can't shell into it, so we'll see.
Well, I will point out that where, I'm just going to run the installer for the Node version real quick and show that the command line options are the same. So I just got a script that I'm going to use to install it to save time. To install Node, that is.
I think for most people, it would probably just come down to, are you used to using Node or are you used to using Python? Or even what do you already have installed or whatnot?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going to use Apache or Nginx, you want to use the Python client because that's probably the only client that has all those configuration tools. If you're using some other language with their web server, then you probably want to use the client that's available in that language. Like Go web servers, you're going to want to use the Go client. Node web servers, you're going to want to use the Node client, so on and so forth. And it looks like this did not work for whatever reason, so I won't show that after all. I do want to show what the key pinning line looks like, though. So this right here is the header that would get set, and so you can define more than one key, and you give a base 64 fingerprint of the key, and this page on the Mozilla Developer Network explains like how that is to be specified, and you can Google it to find out more information.
This is what the server sends back to the client, and the browser then saves the information on the keys, so it can't be swapped out later. Is that right?
Right. So on your server that's public, you would have one key fingerprint, and then you would want to have a backup key that you keep on an offline server. So in case that server gets compromised or something happens, and you need to start a new server fresh, you can use your backup key and then eventually invalidate the previous key. And then you just like you add a header for anything else, you just add this public key pins header with these values.
Okay, I think that's probably good. Like I said, we're getting close to time here. Let's go ahead and move on to the picks. Who wants to start us out? Anybody have something in mind already? I think Guy said he had something, maybe. Or was it Lance? Are they muted? I think they're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. Yeah, I'm shamelessly promoting myself. Web page to come up soon. Thank you, AJ. And where do I put it in here in the Google thing? Is there a...
Put it in Skype. Put the link in
okay,
Skype.
I'll put it up in Skype here.
Because the Google Hangout will disappear as soon as we close it, and then we'll lose everything that was in the Hangout.
Okay. So this is just my... I've been photographing and collecting all the information of concerts that I've been to over the last 20 plus years, and we're talking there's hundreds of them. And I would take notes, and I have a photographic memory, but I took notes about set lists and all that, but I'm writing all this up, putting it up there, and going to just, market that. I like going to shows, photographing and whatever, and just hoping to get more gigs to shoot. So I've got some really good U2 up there. I've got from one of the tours I've shot, but I'm going to be putting a lot more up there. So if you like interesting music reads, there you go. It's Rolling Stone Independent. So
cool.
That's my pick. Shamelessly promoting myself.
Okay. Do AJ or Lance? Do you guys want to go?
Yep, I've got
Lance?
mine. There's a new glib vulnerability that has remote code execution possibility. So if you haven't updated your server, go out and do that right now. Has to do with the get adder info call of the glib C library. So basically, if you're doing anything that's doing any dynamic URL generation, so anything that's going to call a DNS name or URL name, there's a possibility of an exploit where they could craft a malicious string to gain control of your server and execute code. So that came out February 17th. It was discovered by Google. It's pretty interesting, but also recommend that everybody go update their servers.
So a practical application of this exploit, let's say I had an image resizing service where somebody could take a URL and insert it into a form and click resize this, and then in my service I would be looking up the domain for that domain where I'm going to grab the image from, and if that was specially crafted, it could cause this exploit to take hold?
Yeah, yep, possibly. Google said that it's pretty difficult. If you have ALSR and other security measures in place, you'll probably be okay. They have a proof of concept, but that doesn't mean that someone might develop an exploit for it. So, yeah, anything that is taking a URL dynamically, taking in a string in that sense, could possibly be taken advantage of, and they could do remote code execution, which whatever that service is running as, they can run code against and, you know, move forward against your machine.
What's
so it's a pretty
ASLR?
That's kind of like in its own podcast, but it's basically address. Oh man, my brain's broken. But address space layer reorganization. Basically, in the assembly code, it reorganizes where the address mapping of all of the pointers are in the program. So when you load a program, when you load a binary into the memory, it's not generating the same addresses. So like the call for, let's say, get address in this case, isn't always in the same place in memory. So it's basically just a way to make exploit development more difficult, because instead of just knowing where these memory addresses are, you have to kind of find them and guess where they are, or
And that's
hope
generally
that they're in the right place.
turned on in the kernel by default these days, right?
I believe so. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but yeah, Linux should. I think FreeBSD is the only one that isn't using it, but there is a FreeBSD project called HardenedBSD where they're putting in all of these operating system protections. But it's definitely something you're going to want to patch, because glibc isn't everything.
Mm-hmm.
I accidentally deleted the glibc library once and then completely broke a server, because guess what? Move and edit and anything that you want to use needs to know where glibc is. So I had to.
Never thought of that before.
Don't delete glibc when you're trying to fix a package or something, because you will have to boot up in rescue mode and restore it. That was not fun, because I had no commands. I could SSH in, but once I was in, it wouldn't let me do anything.
Yep, so good advice, update your servers and don't delete glibc.
You see, now that's pretty cool. That is pretty funny. Just like I don't know if I said this earlier, but there was a tournament in Montreal back when I was in college, and at École Polytechnique up there, and the game was take down the pedophile websites, child pornographers, and one of the scripts was similar to that. One guy did that, actually. He smoked the glibc, but the other was just rm space -r space /.
Yeah.
And then he typed reboot. It was awesome. So, but yeah, those were the fun days watching the guys do that. So, I'm not saying I was involved. I just got to watch him do it. That's all I'm saying. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I have intimate relations with glibc. It seems to be the cornerstone of pretty much the entire Linux environment.
Yeah. Well, let's. AJ, do you have any picks for us? If not, I can go. You're muted, just so you know.
Ah, yes, I do actually. I have 2 picks. So both books. Okay, so one is called The Dispossessed, and I'm like a little over halfway through it. I'm not really sure what it's about yet, which makes it terrible to like plug. But well, it's not that I'm not sure what it's about. Like I don't know how to explain it yet. Like I think when I finish it, I'll know how to explain it. But it's it's sci-fi and it's kind of maybe philosophical in nature. And the way that it's set up is that one chapter is set at a certain time, I think about 20 years prior, and then the next chapter is like 20 years ahead, or and then and then both chapters are progressing through years. So as you alternate through, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, uh, you're following the character along his journey in 2 different timelines, and so that's why I'm not like quite sure how to explain it yet, because it's starting to get to the point where the reason that the 2 timelines are set that way is becoming clear, but I haven't quite got to it yet. And it's called The Dispossessed because it's about 2 worlds, basically an Earth and a moon, where the moon is habitable as well, and the people on the moon live in a society where they take no ownership. Everything is shared and communal, and there's no government. It's an autonomous collective, or so it would seem, although I think there's some hints that there's a little bit more going on there than what you learn in the very beginning, maybe. Not quite sure. There's something about the 2 governments that's going to happen, I can tell, and that's pretty apparent from like the first couple chapters. But the other Earth is like the Earth that we live on, where like, well, it's like America, where like everybody is in like just has everything that they want all the time, and they don't really have to do a lot of work for it. Like everything's just done for them, and they just kind of like show up and take money and do easy stuff. Whereas the other one is like this farm world. And yeah, I don't. I wish I'd finished it so I could explain like I don't know. It's a good book. Look it up. I can't explain it.
Well, at least if you haven't finished it, you can't really give us any spoilers, right?
Yeah, I don't. I'll be interested to see if there are any spoilers. I mean, it's just
You don't even need to read the second half. It's the same as the first half.
Well, it's kind of like it's a thought. It seems like it's a thought experiment to me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm not sure if it even classifies as a dystopia. I guess I'll find out at the end. The other book is very similar to the book I picked previously. So I picked The God Who Weeps. Same author wrote The Crucible of Doubt, and this book is along the same vein. And it's
funny you should say that, because I'm talking to his wife right now. I'm chatting with her on Facebook as we speak.
No way.
Very.
Well, tell her that I am so loving their books, and that it has made a profound difference in the way that I see my faith.
Well, yeah, so they're big in the Fringe Mormon crew, and yeah, I've just been talking to her. They'll probably have them over for dinner in a couple of weeks when they come through Salt Lake. So. Oh
dang! Well, that's so cool. I would love to have some discussion with them. Anyway. So they have an interesting way of basically saying, take everything that you know and forget it. Like everything you think you know about the Bible, everything you think you know about God, like everything that you think you know, just kind of like forget it and start over. And the example that's at the very beginning of the book, like I think it might even be the first page of the book, is that like some mysteries are like this. There's a lock. And there's a door lock and it has a keyhole, and they say this lock cannot be hacked. Like there's no way that somebody can spend their whole life and they will never be able to jimmy this lock. And the reason is because the keyhole doesn't go anywhere. There's a second keyhole that's under a panel, And
You're still in the preface of the book, man. You haven't even gotten to the meat of it yet.
well, no, I'm just saying that's how it starts.
Right,
And
yeah.
this is like, it is a good preface for the book and the idea of what it's representing. And so the idea is that you remove this panel, and then this second keyhole that actually works appears, and they kind of present this argument that like you have all these cultural norms and things that you believe simply because they were told to you by someone, and you haven't actually investigated it yourself maybe to know, and you're probably looking at things from the wrong angle. So you have all these questions in your brain that aren't the right question, because the question you're asking is, how does this key fit into this keyhole to unlock it? But the real question is, where's the keyhole that this key goes to?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like you have all these assumptions that you're bringing to the process of trying to work through it, whereas you need to first make sure the assumptions that you're bringing to the thought process are actually relevant or true or whatnot, right?
They're awesomely
There's no
trashing.
spoon.
They are trashing the apologists of the LDS Church. I love these two just for that reason alone.
Well, that sounds like another good book. I think I'll get those random,
I just told her, AJ. I just sent her an IM. So
cool.
So for my picks, I'm actually going to not pick two things. I'm going to not pick Apple because of their letter about encryption. Not because I don't like it, but because I don't like Apple. But I like what they did there. I don't think that they're completely honest about. I think that they're taking it from an angle that helps them more than they need to. Like I said this earlier, I think, but they shouldn't be able to decrypt the phone to begin with, or they're not setting up the security properly. So the fact that the FBI could even force them to do it because they're able to shouldn't be happening. But I like that they're standing up and saying, this isn't something that we want to make available to basically make it so the FBI can get into whatever phone they want to. And I'm not going to pick the since you mentioned Trump earlier, I'm not going to pick the Funny or Die movie about Donald Trump where Johnny Depp plays Donald Trump. I'm not picking it because it's got all kinds of vulgar language in there.
Yeah.
But it was pretty funny.
I started watching it and it was like super profane, and I just don't like hardcore humor where it's. I think you can make fun and still be light about it.
But you can't be honest about Donald Trump without that, because that's a little bit of Donald Trump, right?
Okay.
The profane.
Fair.
But yeah, no, it was pretty funny. I didn't watch the whole thing either because of the language and everything got to be too much partway through. But that's why I'm not picking it. But it was still pretty funny. And I'm also going to pick a show that my wife and I just finished, Granite Flats. I think you can get it on Netflix. It's pretty good. It's just
I love that show.
Yeah, it's like a drama with these like three kids from like what I don't know what year it's in, but it's like just after World War II, and whenever during the Red Scare or whatever, with everyone's worried about who's a communist and everything, and it has these three kids that start up this like investigative service or whatever. I think that's not like the main part of the show, but it's the only part I can explain without going too much into what all's there.
Yeah, it's super like kid and family friendly.
Yeah,
it's adult. It's adult and kid friendly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not the youngest of kids. Like they're still like not like graphic violence of any kind, but there's still a lot of things that like little kids either wouldn't be interested in or might be a little much for them with some of the topics. But yeah, definitely like any kid over like 10 or even younger maybe, depending on your kid. But yeah, it's super like family friendly that way, and it was pretty good. The only caveat there is that they're not going to make another season after season 3, and there were some pretty big cliffhangers at the end of season 3. So be prepared to be a little disappointed there. So that's it for me. Okay, so thanks everybody for being on the podcast / video recording. Thanks AJ for showing us about Let's Encrypt, and we will see you guys next week.